Welcome to Risk and Resilience. I'm your host, InfoSec Fox, and you're tuned into the weekly update where I bring to you the latest and most crucial developments in cybersecurity and technology. This week, I have a huge range of topics to cover, and I'll be covering the China-linked threat actors compromising US internet service providers. Kaspersky deleted its anti-malware software and replaced it with Ultra AV across the United States. Google says several major US companies may have unknowingly hired North Korean IT workers. US to ban connected vehicle technology coming from China and Russia due to national security risks. Department of Justice and FBI would need better metrics for tracking ransomware disruption efforts following an audit. NIST removes password complexity and mandatory changes in new guidelines. And also, in a recent survey, they found more than a third of employees sharing sensitive work information with AI tools without their employer's permission. In my first update, I'll be talking about a China-linked threat actor where they compromise some US internet service providers. In recent months, we have seen a group of hackers linked to China, operating under the codename Salt Typhoon, where they successfully breached several US internet service providers. This isn't just another data theft, it's a sophisticated cyber espionage campaign with potentially far-reaching consequences. The primary targets appear to be core network components, with investigators closely examining whether Cisco systems routers have been compromised. While Cisco states there's currently no indication their routers are involved, the situation remains under intense scrutiny. Now let's talk about the impact. These breaches strike at the heart of America's digital infrastructure. By targeting ISPs, Salt Typhoon gains potential access to vast amounts of data flowing through these networks. These could include sensitive communications, financial transactions, and even data from critical infrastructure in the US. The impact extends beyond immediate data theft. By establishing a foothold in these systems, the attackers could, over time, conduct long-term intelligence gathering, providing valuable insights into US businesses and government operations. They could also set up backdoors for future attacks, allowing them to disrupt services or manipulate data at will. Also, they use compromised systems as launching points for attacks on other targets, making attribution more difficult. What's particularly alarming is the shift this represents. Chinese cyber operations appears to be moving from primarily stealing secrets to potentially sabotaging critical infrastructure. This escalation could have severe implications for national security and economic stability. It's not just Salt Typhoon we need to be worried about. Another China-linked group, Volt Typhoon, has been focusing on similar targets. Some experts, like Chris Krebs from Sentinel-1, suggest Salt Typhoon might be affiliated with China's Ministry of State Security, specifically a group known as APT-40. The scale of these operations is staggering. Consider the Raptor train botnet discovered in September, where it compromised over 200,000 devices since 2020. It makes it one of the largest China-linked IoT botnets ever found. This gives the attackers an enormous pool of resources for future campaigns. For businesses and individuals, their impact is very clear. It increases the vulnerability. Your data, whether personal or professional, could be at risk if it passes through compromised networks. Moreover, services we rely on daily could be disrupted if these attackers decided to leverage their access. So, who is Salt Typhoon, and what's their background, and what did they do previously? So, Salt Typhoon, or they are also known as Famous Sparrow and Ghost Emperor, is a China-linked advanced persistent threat group that has been active since at least 2017. They're known for their sophisticated cyber espionage campaigns targeting government agencies, educational institutions, and private companies across various sectors. So, what are the key characteristics and previous attacks attributed to Salt Typhoon? Well, around 2017-2018, the group was first detected targeting government entities in Southeast Asia. They used custom malware dubbed Sparrow Door for backdoor access. In 2019, Salt Typhoon broadened its focus to include targets in East Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. They exploited vulnerabilities in Microsoft Exchange servers at the time. In 2020, the group was implicated in a series of attacks on software supply chains. They compromised several smaller software vendors to distribute Trojanized updates. And in 2021, Salt Typhoon shifted focus to critical infrastructures, particularly in the energy and telecommunication sector. They were linked to attacks on SCADA systems in several Asian countries. And also in 2022 and 2023, the group developed techniques to exploit misconfiguration in cloud services. They targeted major cloud providers to gain access to a wide range of corporate networks. So throughout these campaigns, Salt Typhoon has demonstrated a high level of technical sophistication, often using custom-built tools and exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities. They're known for their ability to maintain long-term persistence in compromised networks, sometimes remaining undetected for months or even years. So the group's tactics often involve spear phishing campaigns with highly targeted lures, exploitation of public-facing web applications, use of living off the land techniques to blend in with normal traffic, network traffic, and deployment of custom backdoors and rootkits. So Salt Typhoon's activities have been a significant concern for cybersecurity professionals and government agencies worldwide, leading to multiple public warnings and advisories from organizations like the US CISA and the UK's NCSC. In the next update, it's about Kaspersky, a well-known player in the cybersecurity world, and its sudden departure from the US market. So what exactly happened? Kaspersky, the Russian cybersecurity company, took a bold and surprising step by automatically deleting its antivirus software from users' computers across the US. This wasn't just an update or a patch. Kaspersky product was completely removed and replaced with Ultra AV, an antivirus solution from a company called Pango Group. And this was done without any prior warning to most customers. This decision follows months of escalating pressure on Kaspersky. So in June, the US government placed the company on its entity list, identifying it as a national security concern. On top of that, the Biden administration announced a ban on selling and updating Kaspersky's software in the US, which officially takes effect on September the 29th, 2024. Essentially, Kaspersky was forced out of the American market. Kaspersky did begin winding down its US operations in July, laying off employees and notifying customers that they would no longer be able to sell or update their software by the end of September. However, when Kaspersky told customers they'd be protected by Ultra AV after the exit, there was no clear mention that Kaspersky software would suddenly uninstall itself, triggering waves of panic among users. Some users thought they had been hacked when they saw the unfamiliar Ultra AV software on their desktops. So imagine turning on your PC and you find your trusted antivirus gone and it was replaced without warning. So naturally, many customers were concerned that their systems may have been compromised by malware, when in reality this was all part of Kaspersky's transition plan. The situation escalated further when some users found they couldn't easily uninstall Ultra AV. Using third-party uninstaller tools didn't work as expected, and in some cases, Ultra AV reinstalled itself after a reboot, raising even more red flags for users. So what is Ultra AV? Well, it's part of Pango Group, a company that controls various VPN services like Hotspot, Shield, and Ultra VPN. Beyond that, not much is publicly known about Ultra AV, which holds to the skepticism and concern from users. Kaspersky reassured users that Ultra AV offers similar features and protection, but given the circumstances, trust has clearly taken a hit. In response to the outcry, both Kaspersky and Pango Group claimed they communicated the transition via emails, pop-ups and notification in the users' Kaspersky accounts. However, many customers either missed or didn't fully understand these alerts, leading to confusion and frustration. A Kaspersky spokesperson said that the transition was implemented in waves to ensure smooth protection, with the first batch of users receiving the software updates back in September the 19th and others to follow. But given the way this was handled, it's left with many professionals questioning the ethics of this forced switch. Kaspersky and Ultra AV's handling of the transition raises concerns about how companies can manage such exits without disrupting their users' sense of security. It also highlights the growing influence of government's policies on the cybersecurity industry, especially when national security risks are involved. If you're in charge of cybersecurity for your organization and rely on Kaspersky products, it's essential to review your systems now and also ensure you understand the new software being implemented, and if necessary, make alternative plans to maintain your organization's cyber defenses. In my next update, I want to share this important update from recent Mandiant report, the rise of North Korean IT workers operating under the radar to infiltrate and exploit organizations across industries. Mandiant published a comprehensive report titled Staying a Step Ahead, Mitigating the Democratic People's Republic of Korea IT Worker Threat. It sheds light on how these North Korean IT workers pose as foreign nationals, primarily targeting Western companies, and how they have evolved into a major cybersecurity risk. These workers not only generate revenue for North Korean regime, which funds their weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile programs, but they also have the potential to enable malicious cyber activities. So let's break this down. Since 2022, Mandiant and other organizations have been tracking IT workers acting on behalf of North Korea. These workers are not your typical cyber criminals. They are highly organized and are part of a state-sponsored effort to evade sanctions. The US government flagged this issue back in 2022, noting how these individuals infiltrate organizations, gain privileged access, and can facilitate cyber attacks once embedded in a company's infrastructure. What's especially concerning is how these North Korean IT workers are disguising themselves. They use stolen identities, set up front companies, and leverage facilitators, non-North Korean individuals who help them secure jobs and launder money. Some of these IT workers work multiple jobs at once, all remotely, to maximize revenue for the regime. A key player in this threat group, Mandiant identifies as UNC 5267. Unlike traditional threat groups, UNC 5267 isn't centralized. These workers are spread across China, Russia, Africa, and Southeast Asia, often securing jobs in the US tech sector. What's their mission? Well, to gain employment at Western companies, often remotely, and maintain long-term access to corporate systems. From there, they can siphon funds, access sensitive data, and potentially prepare for future cyber intrusions. But here is where it gets tricky. UNC 5267's operators often rely on fake resumes and forged identities, making it incredibly difficult for HR departments to spot them during the hiring process. These workers provide high-level programming skills, sometimes delivering quality work, but their main goal is gaining access and staying hidden. Mandiant's incident response efforts have uncovered some of the tactics these workers use once inside an organization. Often they're given elevated access, allowing them to modify code, manage networks, and more. This heightened access poses a significant security risk for businesses. In one case, Mandiant discovered that a Democratic People's Republic of Korea worker was using fake profiles on platforms like Netlify and LinkedIn, showcasing false credentials and fabricated testimonials. These resumes include images and identities stolen from professionals on LinkedIn, further masking their true origin. A common characteristic is that these workers claim to live in one location but request corporate laptops be sent to another, usually a laptop farm operated by facilitators. These farms house multiple corporate laptops that are remotely controlled by North Korean workers via tools such as GoToRemote, TeamViewer, and Chrome Remote Desktop. So how can organizations detect and prevent these workers from gaining access? Well, in Mandiant's report, they provide some valuable insights. First of all is vetting candidates. Implement more stringent background checks, including the use of biometrics and AI analysis to detect manipulated profile pictures. Organizations should also conduct thorough interviews requiring cameras to be on, and also verify that the candidate story matches their background. They could also monitor remote admin tools. So many of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea IT workers use remote access tools like AnyDesk, TeamViewer or RustDesk to control multiple devices. Monitoring for the presence of multiple remote tools on corporate system is key. Another red flag, the use of VPN services like Astral VPN to mask their true location. Also, you could look at the geolocation and monitor the devices. Verifying that corporate laptops are located where the worker claims to reside and not in a suspicious location is another step to identify fraud. Periodic spot checks requiring workers to go on camera and show their workspace can also help confirm identities. And the other part, training HR and security teams. So educating HR and cybersecurity teams on specific tactics used by these IT workers, like the reluctance to turn on video during interviews or using VoIP numbers, can go a long way in spotting potential threats early. So the North Korean regime's reliance on cyber operation is growing. These IT workers represent a dual threat, fulfilling state objectives while also seeking personal financial gain. They're technically proficient and highly adaptable, making them more formidable opponents for security teams and HR departments. Given the sophistication of the operations, Mannion expects to see continued targeting of Western and European organizations. The stakes are high, with risks ranging from data breaches and financial losses to more significant national security concerns. In my next update, the Biden administrations are proposing a ban on connected vehicles and technologies from China and Russia. Now, this might sound like just another policy update, but the implications are enormous, especially for national security. So what is exactly going on? The Department of Commerce has recently proposed a ban on importing vehicles and vehicle technologies from China and Russia, citing them as countries of security concern. The idea is to protect the US from cyber threats and espionage that could come from connected vehicle technologies. These are vehicles that rely heavily on internet connectivity and data exchange for things like autonomous driving and navigation. So what's the risk? Well, connected vehicles have systems like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi and other sensors and microphones that communicate with the outside world. While these make for a smoother ride or more advanced features, they also create huge vulnerabilities. These technologies could be exploited for unauthorized surveillance, cyber attacks, or even immobilizing vehicles. The real concern here is that foreign adversaries like China and Russia could use these technologies to gather sensitive data about US infrastructure or sabotage critical systems. So imagine you're driving a car and your car being remotely disabled while you're driving it. This isn't science fiction. The Biden administration is taking steps to prevent these threats before they become reality. The proposed ban will affect connected vehicles starting in 2027 for software and 2030 for hardware components. This is a major move in line with other efforts like banning of Kaspersky Labs software earlier this year, which had ties to Russian cyber operations. For government and for professional organizations, I think it's critical to stay ahead of these threats. The evolving landscape for connected technologies means that securing the supply chains and understanding the geopolitical risk is no longer optional, it's a necessity. In my next update, a significant audit that raises concerns about how the US Department of Justice and the FBI measure their success in the fight against ransomware. The Department of Justice Office of Inspector General released a 26-page audit examining the department's actions on ransomware between April 2021 and September 2023. This report, led by Inspector General Michael Horowitz, suggests that the Department of Justice and FBI may need to redefine what success looks like in disrupting ransomware operations. The audit highlights three key areas for improvement. First, it calls for better metrics to measure the impact and effectiveness of ransomware disruption efforts. Right now, the DOJ's primary metric of success is based on opening or adding cases and taking action within 72 hours. While the FBI reports progress, 47% of ransomware incidents saw action within that timeframe, up from 39% in 2022. The audit suggests this doesn't fully capture how well these actions are disrupting ransomware networks. So what's the issue here? The audit points out that while the DOJ focuses on how quickly cases are opened, it doesn't clearly measure the long-term effectiveness of those actions. So, swift responses are essential, but are they actually dismantling ransomware operations? The audit emphasizes the need to track more meaningful metrics, like how many ransomware gangs were disrupted, how much infrastructure was taken down, or how many decryption keys were delivered to victims. So let's take Lockbit for example. So in early 2024, the DOJ took down the prominent ransomware gang's infrastructure, providing victims with hundreds of decryption keys. These kinds of disruptions are major wins, and the audit argues that this is the sort of success that should be front and center when tracking the fight against ransomware. Another major finding in the audit is the lack of coordination between different law enforcement agencies. In some cases, investigations were hampered by internal disputes, with prosecutors in related ransomware cases failing to share critical information. This failure to deconflict, as the report calls it, not only wastes resources but can also undermine national security and public trust. For government agencies and large organizations that rely on federal coordination to combat cyber threats, this is an alarming find. It serves as a reminder that when agencies don't collaborate effectively, everyone else is left vulnerable to the attacks. The audit also sheds light on a bit of organizational confusion between two major task forces aimed at combating ransomware. The FBI leads the National Cyber Investigative Joint Task Force, known as NCI-JTF, which coordinated ransomware efforts through 2021 and 2022. However, the creation of a new Joint Ransomware Task Force, JRTF, in 2022 left the NCI-JTF's role somewhat unclear. So according to the audit, once the JRTF was up and running, the NCI-JTF's effort to combat ransomware stalled, with its mission becoming not well defined. So now both the DOJ and FBI are being urged to clearly outline how these task forces will work together moving forward. The DOJ and FBI have acknowledged the audit findings. Both have agreed to improve how they define success in their ransomware disruption efforts. Moving forward, the FBI and DOJ need to develop an action plan that ensures progress is tracked in ways that show real, lasting impacts against ransomware actors. This includes not only swift responses, but also disrupting cyber criminal networks, seizing funds, and delivering decryption tools to victims. Okay, next up on my list of updates is that NIST removes password complexity and mandatory changes in its new guidelines. In their latest guidelines, released in September 2024, NIST has essentially told us to forget everything we thought we knew about creating strong passwords. First, say goodbye to those complex passwords with a capital letter, a number, a symbol, and maybe your firstborn child thrown in for good measure. NIST is now saying that a mixture of character types is not necessary. Second, this might come as a shock to everyone, mandatory password changes are out the window. You know that policy where you have to change your password every 90 days? NIST says unless there's a breach, don't bother. Now before you start thinking NIST has gone soft, let's look at what they're recommending instead. First, longer passwords are better. They're suggesting a minimum of 15 characters, with systems allowing up to at least 64 characters. That's right, a whopping 64 characters. They're encouraging also the use of both ASCII and Unicode characters in passwords. This opens up a world of possibilities. The possibilities of having emojis in passwords. NIST has removed knowledge-based authentication. You know, where the security questions be like, what's your mother's maiden name? Or what was the name of your first pet? NIST is saying that they no longer considered secure. Now, why the change now? Well, it's turns out that your old password practices weren't as effective as we thought. Complex passwords are hard for humans to remember, but relatively easy for computers to crack. And forcing regular password changes, this often leads to weaker passwords or people just adding a number at the end. This shift aligns with some other major players that have been saying as well. The US Federal Trade Commission and Microsoft have been pushing for similar changes for a while now. So what does this mean for you and your organization? First, it's time to revisit your password policies. If you're still enforcing complexity rules and mandatory changes, you might want to consider updating your approach. Second, think about implementing password managers if you haven't already. These tools can help generate and store long, unique passwords for each account. And third, consider multi-factor authentication. While not directly addressing this guideline, it remains a crucial layer of security. Lastly, remember that these are guidelines, not regulatory or laws. You'll need to consider your specific security needs and risk profile when deciding how to implement these recommendations. I want to share in my next update about Congress advancing a bill to add AI to its National Vulnerability Database. The AI Incident Reporting and Security Enhancement Act would allow NIST to create a process for reporting and tracking vulnerabilities found in AI systems. On September 26, the House Science, Space and Technology Committee took a crucial step forward in addressing the growing concerns around AI security. They advanced a bill called the AI Incident Reporting and Security Enhancement Act. Now, this might sound like a mouthful, but it's a big deal for anyone involved in AI development or cybersecurity. So what's all this about? In essence, the bill aims to bring AI systems under the umbrella of the National Vulnerability Database. For those who might not be familiar, the National Vulnerability Database is like the federal government's central hub for tracking security vulnerabilities in software and hardware. It's a critical resource for cybersecurity professionals across the nation. Now, why is this important? Well, as AI systems become more prevalent in our daily lives and critical infrastructure, they also become more attractive targets for cyber attacks. By including AI in the National Vulnerability Database, we acknowledge that these systems need the same level of scrutiny and protection as traditional software and hardware. But here's where it gets interesting and potentially challenging. The bill would task NIST with creating a formal process for reporting these AI vulnerabilities. Now, if you've been following NIST's recent activities, you might know that they're already stretched thin. Earlier this year, they had to pause updates to the National Vulnerability Database due to budget constraints and staffing issues. This brings us to a critical point: funding. The bill specifies that this new initiative would be subject to the availability of funding. Representative Deborah Ross, one of the bill's sponsors, acknowledged the significant funding and scaling challenges NIST is facing. She assured that they're actively looking for solutions to address this issue. Another interesting aspect of this bill is call for developing a common lexicon for reporting AI cybersecurity incidents. This would involve collaboration between NIST, other federal agencies like the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, private sector organizations, and civil society groups. It's an ambitious goal, but one that could greatly improve our ability to communicate and respond to AI-related security threats. However, it's not all smooth sailing. Some committee members expressed concerns about the language used in the bill. Terms like substantial artificial intelligence security incident need clearer definitions. This push for specificity is particularly important in the light of recent Supreme Court decisions affecting how federal agencies interpret laws. So what does this mean for you and I? Well, if this bill becomes law, it could significantly change how we approach AI security. It could provide a standardized framework for reporting and tracking AI vulnerabilities, potentially making it easier to identify and address threats before they become major incidents. But it also raises some important questions. How will this impact AI development and deployment? Will it lead to more rigorous security testing for AI systems? And crucially, how will NIST manage this additional workload without compromising its existing responsibilities? I want to emphasize that this is still a developing story. The bill has cleared the committee, but it still needs to pass the full Congress and be signed into law. We'll be keeping a close eye on its progress and what it could mean for the future of AI security. In my last update of this week's podcast, I want to talk about the unauthorized use of AI tools in the workplace. So let's start with a startling statistic. According to a recent study by Cybersecurity and the National Cybersecurity Alliance, more than 1/3 of employees, 38% to be exact, are sharing sensitive work information with AI tools without their employer's permission. Now, if that doesn't make you sit up and take notice, I don't know what will. This trend is even more pronounced among younger generations. The study found that 46% of Gen Z and 43% of millennials admitted to this behavior. This generational divide highlights a growing challenge for organizations: how to balance the innovative potential of AI with the need for data security. Now, you might be wondering, why aren't all companies addressing this? Well, here's another shocking figure. 52% of employed participants in the study revealed that they haven't received any training on safe AI use. This lack of guidance extends beyond the workplace, with 58% of students and over 80% of those not actively employed or retired also lacking AI training. Oz Al-Shi, CEO and founder of Cybersecurity, put it succinctly: the introduction of AI has created a whole new category of security behaviors for CISOs and business leaders to be concerned with. He points out that while the security community is aware of the threats posed by AI, this awareness hasn't translated into consistent security behaviors in the workforce. But let's put this into perspective. Ronan Murphy, a member of the AI Advisory Council for the Government of Ireland, warns that AI tools accessing organizational data represents the biggest risk that any industry has ever faced. In terms of cybersecurity, governance and compliance, so think about that for a moment. The biggest risk ever, Murphy explains: if you feed an AI model with all your IP, then anybody with access to it can ask it to spill the beans. So what's the solution? Murphy suggests that organizations need to properly sanitize the data before it goes into any AI applications. This is crucial for embracing AI while maintaining operational efficiency and security. But it's not just about organizational risk. The study also revealed widespread concern among individuals about AI-related cybercrime. 2/3 of respondents expressed worry about AI being used to create more convincing phishing emails. Over half believe AI will make it harder to detect scams and secure online. There's also a significant trust issue. The study found an almost even split between those who trust organizations' implementation of AI and those who don't. Only about 1/3 of respondents believe companies are ensuring AI technologies are free of bias. Perhaps most concerning is the potential impact on our democratic processes. A worrying 36% of respondents believe it's likely that AI will influence their decisions on what is real and fake during election campaigns. So what does all this mean for you and your organization? First and foremost, it's a wake-up call. If you haven't already implemented a comprehensive AI usage policies and training programs, now is the time. This just isn't about protecting sensitive data, it's about also ensuring that responsible and ethical use of AI is used across your organization. And secondly, it's crucial to foster an open dialogue about AI use. Create an environment where employees feel comfortable discussing their AI use rather than hiding it. This transparency can help you identify potential risks and opportunities. So this is it for me from this week. And remember to subscribe for more updates on the latest developments and also to stay ahead of the risks and threats. Thanks for listening.